All right, Crypt Keepers, Jane Austen, and cool hair. That's right. We are doing Woman Seeking Dead Husband, Smokers Only, No Pets. That title is a mouthful, and we are ready for the 4th episode of this podcast.
I've heard it both ways.
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 And welcome back to I've heard it both ways. We are Dem Pineapple Boys. I'm your friendly neighborhood backcracker, Dr. Joe. And with me, as always, in the blueberry is my guy, Raspberry Beret. Raz, how's it going?
Nice, a Prince reference. I love it. I'm excited. We got a pretty good episode here.
Yeah, we sure do. So we kind of, last week was a little tough because the episode wasn't great. And kind of looking ahead, I wasn't psyched, no pun intended, about this particular episode, but then I've watched it again, and what do we have here? We have a Squaggins alert.
Oh, adorable in the open.
Can you say goodnight? Wave to him, say goodnight. Say, I've heard it both ways. All right, kiddo. I love you. I'll see you in the morning, okay? All right, sweet dreams, kiddo.
Well, again, just nothing but cuteness on this podcast. She's now 3 for 4.
3 for 4. I absolutely love it. That was sweet. So looking ahead to this week's episode, wasn't so thrilled either, but I've watched it a couple of times, Billy, and yeah, I've enjoyed it a heck of a lot more just on these recent watches because it got back to some really good detective work. We had a couple of twists in this episode, some great quips and some great sneaky little jokes that I hopefully you and I knowing you probably picked up, but I jotted them down in this episode. So this is another real good episode for me in season 1.
Yeah, I loved it. Thinking back, like you said a couple of times here, it was a letdown in episode 3, but episode 4, I think they got back on track. 5, really, they start to rocket ship this thing from there, right to the moon. But this one kind of builds strongly into the next episode, and I really enjoyed it. If you want to get us started with our process here, I think we start with the Creamsicle.
You start with a Holla?
Oh, with the Holler. We end with the Creamsicle and the Thundercats ho in the middle.
Oh, right in the middle, baby.
I'm off today. I've had a long day at work.
Yeah, hey, that was me last week, and I think we're all just sort of getting ready to the holidays, and we're going to get this party started. But like I said, this was a great episode because it gets us back to, I think, what we both love about the show, or one of the aspects we love about the show is the detective work and the crime that is at hand. So we get a really good cold open. This is another one of this. We're back to back good cold opens where Henry has got Sean on his stakeout, and his son of a bitch neighbor is stealing his paper, right? So he wants to catch him, and we get a sneaky little lesson in here where Sean, has to go pee, and Henry says, "You got to hold it because the moment you look away, right, you're gonna lose your guy." And we see that play out later in the episode. And so they catch the bastard stealing the paper. I mean, who does that? First of all, who steals a fucking newspaper? Pardon my French, folks.
On Friends, Chandler got his TV guide stolen for years from the girls next door.
Yeah. Well,
it's a classic TV trope. I can see why they worked it.
Yeah.
It played off nicely, but that's also the only Henry we get.
You did. You're right. That is the only Henry we get, and I wish they kind of had done that last episode too, because I thought his little thing in the middle of that episode was pointless. But we'll definitely get more and more Henry going forward, because we didn't get that classic Sean goes to Henry for help in this episode. But there's a really great case that this episode revolves around, and that's a bank. It's a bank robbery, but the bank robbery had happened a few years in the past. And what happens is 2 of the 3 bank robbers are being released from prison. And they let the widow of the 3rd dead bank robber know that these 2 guys are out, because they fear that, her life, might be in some sort of jeopardy, and they sort of want to give her a heads up and offer her some protection. And
I will say, for the casting of everybody in this, not great, Bob. So normally Psych hits it out of the park with their casting. I think obviously because it's early on in the show, they kind of have a low budget here. So the woman playing Raylene Wilcroft, the 2 robbers, and the husband, David Wilcroft, not the best of actors, but still good enough.
Yeah, see, I liked the actress that played Raylene. She's the wife, because I thought she played the victim very well. And then at the end, character jumped the shark a bit. The bank robbers again weren't great, although I liked one of them. With the gag where how many fingers am I holding my back?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Fat guys, always jolly, always great. But you're right. Wasn't the best casting, and Psych 9 times out of 10, right, gets this dead on. Especially
I'd say from there on out, it's 10 out of 10. Usually, everybody they cast in every role is fucking home run city.
Yeah, great cameos. So no known cameos in this one, I don't believe. Yeah, the guy that plays is it David Wilcroft or whatever his name is?
Cool hair.
Yeah, cool hair, but he stinks. Oh, he's like mashed potatoes. Just come on. You want a little bit more there, but he's thankfully not in the episode a whole lot. But again, it revolves around this robbery, and so Raylene is the wife, and she is very much into psychics. Oh. And Sean gets wind of this, and this we get our first psych customer. They have their first paying gig outside of the police department, and so we get them. We get really our first in-depth look at the psych office, and we get Raylene here paying for their services, and we start to get a little smooth Gus.
I was just gonna say we get a player named Gus. He is obviously he's my favorite character on the show, and if you've seen this show or listened to the show before, you know that. But I mean, the geekiness comes out, his quips come out. I searched for like 20 minutes today about what they say about a guy who wears a lot of hats, doesn't like his haircut. Not in any fucking book ever. I searched it a million different ways, couldn't find it. Totally made up quote for the show. Every time you type up this episode and the quote, you get the Jane Austen quote, which is a real one that comes up later in the episode. Yep. But yeah, Gus being into her, not wanting to admit it. And then she reminded me of somebody that was very important in my life. And he's like, MBB, it wasn't Meredith Baxter Birney.
Stop bringing up Meredith Baxter Birney.
You liked her too. Well, yeah, that's because she gave birth to APK.
Yeah.
And like at the time, I didn't realize it. And then I remembered, okay, that's the Keatons and that's Alex P. Keaton.
Yeah. That was a great.
That's a deep cut.
That is a real deep cut. And I love, so that scene in particular is great because, they're sitting in the car and Sean's just, really giving him a hard time about this. And Gus is going on about his babysitter. She taught me things, Sean, and what's really great about that is, I don't know if you caught, do you know what song is playing in the background?
Oh, this was a little too on the nose for me and I didn't like it. It's Stacy's mom.
Yeah. I never picked it up until 2 nights ago.
Yep. I actually made a note of that being like, man, they get better with their like music selections. And actually early on is the only time I think they use a lot of real music. Season 5, they kind of kick back in with some real music, but it's usually just like a bump, 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 like, that classic TV kind of comedy / dramedy stuff they get in there.
Unless it's Tears for Fears. We get some Tears for Fears, right? But yeah, so I thought that was like, cause I don't know why. I mean, I know I've watched this episode more than a handful of times, and I think I would always get so wrapped up between the banner between Sean and Gus there, because like I said, Sean's really kind of busted his balls there, and that was the first time I was like, oh shit, yeah, that's Stacy's mom, playing in the background. So that's a big part of this episode that I love, is just Gus's infatuation. With this older woman, and he really lays it on thick at times, which is great. But so another thing about this episode, we get a lot of sort of Lassie and Juliet together, and I gotta say, Juliet's a bit of a pill in this episode.
Still not good. Not good yet. She's still finding her footing as a character. I mean, the going back with the 11-22s and all that kind of stuff, she's kind of being a little bit prickly, saying that she's not interested in Lassie, and like, I am insulted by the implication. And that's where you can kind of see the disparity in the actor at that moment. Like, Juliet's still finding her footing in the character, where Lassie is just locked in, and everything that he delivers in this episode is crisp and good. He's a little bit too strong at Sean, but I think they play with that over time. Obviously, we've noted that in the early episodes too. They kind of develop a better back and forth. It's not it's like two like butt heads and adversarial right now, and like it becomes a little bit more playful as we go along.
Yep. And yeah, so that's the thing. I think the two characters that we get so far right from the rip that are basically themselves through the entirety of the show is Gus and Lassie.
Mm-hmm.
There's very little like with Juliet, for example, she's a bit of a pill. She's not her dominant presence and confident self, right? Which she becomes. I mean, you really see that towards the end of the season, but definitely through season 2 and on. And even with Sean, right? With Sean, we still get the quippy Sean. But he's not that.
They add layers to his personality.
Yes, exactly.
They keep adding on like things that make him a little more interesting, a little more dynamic, a little more fun, a little less of the cool Sean as he slowly evolves as a character and as a bigger guy physically in the weight department. So you see that happening, and they're just fine tuning these characters. Juliet kind of does like a 180. She's not like a mousy detective. She's not wearing like these kind of baggy pantsuits, but then she's wearing like the showing off her body kind of like tight fitting pantsuits, which gives her a little bit stronger of a vibe too. Like you can just tell by the way she dresses in the episodes. Like she's wearing like a puffy blouse and like big shoulder pads, where as you go on, she's more like sleek and like seductive even.
Yeah,
not to sound salacious.
Right. Lothario Dawson over here. But yeah, she's a little too mousy, a little too reserved, but a little too nitpicky. And we've seen a couple of times throughout the series where her and Lassie have this fun little back and forth in terms of like who did better at the academy and things like that. It's done much, much better later on. But that scene with them in the car, and anytime they were really in the car, I didn't like. At the end, you see a little bit of a change there, which was good. But that was one of the things that I took away from this episode that just wasn't one of my favorites.
Sean kind of has to come over the top and like save the scene. When they're tailing them and then they lose them. So he does. He's still the star of the show and he's still carrying it. But it gets to the point. I would say even in the next few episodes where they are carrying their own scenes quite heavily.
Yeah, and especially with Juliet, because she's one of my favorite characters. You love Gus. I think you love Gus as much as I love Sean. But my next favorite character is Juliet, because she plays off them so well. The relationship she has with Sean, the relationship she has with Lassiter. I just love her, and it's great to see that I'm glad to see that she starts to evolve. But this episode doesn't really do her justice.
She makes my Mount Rushmore of Psych characters. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. So doesn't Woody. Love me some Woody.
No, she actually might get pushed out then.
Yeah.
Woody,
yeah.
Be on the Mount Rushmore. She might be an honorable mention then, because Woody's definitely on there. He doesn't come until I think season 4 or 5, but when he comes in with a presence.
Did you see a little guy with a hook for an arm? Absolutely love Woody. And then we get another, so this season's sort of been rife with over-the-top Sean moments, especially with the psychic stuff. And I don't know if that's just them just sort of trying to flesh out, like, yes, he's a psychic and he really has to play it up, but we get an actual seance, in this episode, which is a little over the top. I didn't mind it as some of the over-top stuff that we got in the last episode, but you've got Sean and a whole bunch of middle-aged, ladies, just
all right. Now we're talking.
Yeah, we're right in Billy's wheelhouse. Is it swipe right? Do you swipe right? Or
I don't know. That's right. On the whole room.
It's a fun little scene, but we get a little vandalism in this scene, right? The psych office gets a brick chucked through its window, but what we get is and this is where I thought the actress playing Raylene continues to do a good job, because she continues to play the victim. You think that her husband's dead, she's a grieving widow, she's nervous and scared. She really wants to make sure that it's starting to get to a point where now she's getting a little too probing, right? She really is she gets mad at
Gus for interrupting the seance, and then the the sister spills the beans that you
Yeah.
know he was spending time with his cousin or brother, David David Wilcroft's brother, the crypt keeper, you know, who manages the cemetery. So that was the big lead for Sean. We also get during this seance, which I love, is anytime we get nervous Gus, like, you can't do this. Technically, you need a permit to have a garage sale. So like anytime like he just throws out that random information that like one of my favorites is when he's like, I'm going to give you Indian sunburn so bad your ulnar nerve's going to burn. And like he just like has like random information that kind of correlates, and like the whole like you need a permit to have a garage sale is like a perfect Gus thing that they throw in early. It's a perfect trope. Yeah,
and this is where I relate to Gus very much, because I'm very much a stickler for the rules. I don't know if you've figured this out about me, Billy. I am not a bad boy. Right, the only law breaking I'm doing is I'm swearing on Sundays, and you started drinking beer probably a little earlier than I should have, but hope my mom's not watching. But but yeah, so we get that seance scene. We get some good information there, and then we get some more information. We get a bit of a callback, right, to the pilot episode. I don't know what that officer's name is. The black officer that's sort of at the front desk there. Where She's in just I think this might be her last episode. She's kind of in another one, but she is also loves psychics and crystals, and they take her down to the records room. Another pretty good Sean moment, a little bit over the top. Yeah, didn't think it was super necessary, but he's got to do his thing. Yeah, and I loved her, and I actually wish she was in some more episodes, just because she eats it up so well, and usually like, oh yeah, we talked about the gullible character, and it's a little over the top, but for some reason it just worked, and then she's like, well, what did he say? And he does one of these, he goes, that's naughty. I'm gonna keep that one to myself.
He looks at his hand. It's like written down, like all of the stuff that's on there. He's like, it's private.
Yeah. That's what
Even though he's talking to her grandmother.
Right. I'm gonna get that's private. So that was a fun little. But we get some important information there, which leads to the first big twist of the episode, which I don't think we got any twists last time. So I love whodunits and I love the twists, and this is the first one that we get. So they're where do they go? Do they go to the morgue cousin's house or whatever it is? And they notice that there's laundry being done or whatever. I can't remember what the clue was, but then
dryer sheets.
That's right. And there he is. There's David Wilcroft. This guy's supposed to be dead. He's alive and well. They find him, and this is a fun little scene.
Yeah, and I also love how Sean points out whether somebody has good hair or bad hair. In the episode before, he was like, look at the best man. He's smashed. He's got horrible hair. So this one, he's got cool hair. And even at the end of the episode, they talk about like what it would have, like what it would take to have that hair, all the upkeep, split ends. And that's a running gag throughout the show, is Sean's obsession with like having good hair. In the pandemic one, actually, there was a guy who was like, he's like going super bald. He's like, so I see there's no Rogaine here on your chart. He's like, no, you don't even want to try it.
Yeah. Also, when in the pandemic one, when they're getting the showers outside, he's got the Johnson & Johnson's babies.
No more tears, Jules.
Yeah, no more tears. Yeah, and then Light's homicidal murder, right? The way his hair is coiffed.
I love it. He's got a little sprinkle of blonde highlights in there too.
Yeah, that's an all time. We get some good detective work in this moment, right? With the dryer sheets.
Gus too.
Yeah, right. What does Gus do here?
He's the one who gets the super sniffer going, and he smells the dryer sheets, and he convinces Sean that somebody's still there, because how long does it take to dry a load of laundry? Then they hit the back door, they run into David Wilcroft, realize that he, was the getaway driver, and he lost the money.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, that's right. And they notice, because they see the dried mud on his shoes, and so they know he's been digging. So what we learn, in this moment, is that he never died, and he buried the money. The problem is he can't remember where he buried the money, and he's really effing screwed, if he doesn't find it, because he just wants to move on with his life. And I think he tells Sean and Gus, in this moment, he goes, those guys that went to prison, they're lucky, because they got to go, they paid their debt, and now they're out. Me, I can't. I've got to, live in fear, and I've got to hide because, I can't, find this, this friggin' money. So Sean gets stumped. And this is typically where
He would go to Henry.
But there's no Henry. And then I think we get a nice little, we get some more, Juliet and, Lassie in a stakeout thing. And where Sean sneaks into the car. He's like, you guys didn't even know I was here. And this is where the lesson from the cold open occurs. Because as Lassie's not paying attention to the stakeout and bitching at Sean, the guys take off. But
you lost him anyways.
Yeah, we get Gus to the rescue because he's
Gus was Johnny on the spot, and then we get probably my favorite joke in the episode when they go to enter the hotel room, and he's like, Sean, that's breaking and entering, and he's like, only if we break something, and then enter.
Right. Yeah.
And like. That coupled with like the Family Ties Alex P. Keaton reference, that's when I knew I was really gonna love this show when they threw in like that kind of humor alongside like the old reference stuff with like the MBB. Like that's still like every time I hear that cracks me up because who has ever referenced her as MBB, Meredith Baxter Burney?
No, I don't. Or APK, right? Alex P. Keaton, right?
I think I might have heard that before, but still, like the way he just ripped it off like it was shorthand, it was great.
Yeah, and so by the time I first started watching Psych, I think I had said I was like already in season 2, so I was already hooked before I went back and started watching these episodes. But I love this scene here where they're in the hotel room, and I know so there was just 2 escaped convicts. One of them stinks. He's useless. He's just
Yeah, he's like the tough white guy.
Yeah. Oh, yep. Look, we got company kind of thing. But it's the other guy that's great because Sean and Gus are like, oh shit, how we gonna get out of this? And Sean does this thing that he always does. This is a common trope throughout the show where when Sean needs to get out of a jam, he does this whole psychic thing to kind of get the other people. He always buys a little time to kind of gauge the person. He always goes, it's not like a garbage disposal. You can't just turn it on. Right. And then he's like, like we're gonna kill you basically if you don't prove you're psychic. And then the way he proves he's psychic is he's just guessing numbers behind this guy's back. And the guy's so stupid that he like is letting him read it off of the reflection from the water to the TV. And then he actually says that. He actually straight up says, well, I'm actually reading it from the picture off the reflection of the TV. So then he turns his back to Gus, and then Gus is just like, really? And he's just like, it's number 2, or 4, or whatever the number he keeps. It's the same number. Yeah, he got 3. It was 3. He kept doing the number 3, and it's funny. So when Sean says that, he goes, "Yeah, it's a reflection off the TV," which I'm reading. He's like, he doesn't know if he's like serious or not. So then he like kind of hesitates and then turns around, and he's got his fingers and is right in Gus's face, and Gus goes,
"I love Gus's reaction. Gus is so good." And I actually read something that he was nominated for an award for his performance in the Spelling Bee. So shout out to that episode as well. He is such phenomenal. I really do think he's the best character in cable television history.
Oh, he's wonderful. And watching Psych was my first introduction to Dule Hill. I'd never watched The West Wing.
Neither have I.
It was on, and I was like, it was in the show that I gave a shit about. It's something that, in my 20s, that's something my parents would watch it. It wasn't. But I kind of want to go back and watch it now, and I never know he was on that show, and I guess he was really awesome on that show.
Oh yeah, people love him on that show, so he stuck out, and now they even make the reference. Don't be. It's like the Gus don't be a 11.5 pound Black Forest hammer or whatever it is, or a gooey chocolate chip cookie. They actually said one time, don't be the only black lead on a major cable television network, referencing him as one of the only guys cast in that role. So he's just a tremendous actor, and this was another solid, strong performance from him in this episode.
Yeah, he just plays that character so well, and eventually Sean will get as good at his character, as Gus is with his, and that's the best part about all the shows. Well, once everyone settles in, they're awesome.
Well, I think I'd like to have, see if we can get that Fryer pull or even the Doc pull from the newest episode that I heard, Landon Pig interviews. If we can get one of them on to find out, because I'm assuming Gus's character is similar to who he is. And then, I assume, as we get further along with Sean and he gets more involved in the production, that the character, is a little bit more just like him, where I think he's playing it a little too cool early.
Yeah, I mean that would be awesome, and we'll try our damnedest to make that happen, because I think that would be that would be pretty awesome. Because when you see these guys in interviews, especially in Dule Hill, he just seems very genuine. It seems like his Gus is sort of an extension of him. So this was a great Gus episode, and so. We sort of, they escape from, well, actually, before they do that, before they get out of it, we get our second big twist in this scene where, Sean and Gus are sort of talking about Raylene being the victim, and the convicts are laughing their ass off because, surprise,
terrified of her.
Yeah.
She was the mastermind.
Raylene was the mastermind, and Gus refuses to believe it.
Yeah. Good old Gus, always out there for the honeys. As we said, this was the first dip into him, and he's a little bit of a white knight. He's a little bit of a wet blanket, and I kind of like that because we've all been there. I've realized that that's not the way to approach it anymore, but it's very relatable that he can't believe that this woman could be bad, and it quite frankly is a little bit of it's a good twist, and I think you mentioned. We get back to that in a little bit. There's, a few twists, a few turns in this one where they make you think one way and the other way. And, we've said it before. We'll say it again. They do a very good job of not being able to figure out who the actual villain is until the end. This one, they gave it away a little bit early, but at least they had some twists and turns on the way there.
And this is where I mentioned earlier where the character, the actress jumped the shark a little bit, because I did think that she played the victim pretty well, and she was pretty good at, she kind of gives some hints that, she's a little too, she wants to know a little too much about sort of where the case is going or where Sean's investigation is going. But then when they're in the mausoleum at the end and she's holding the gun.
She doesn't play it well. I like the twist, but she's not good at it.
Yeah, she's not good at that aspect of that character. The other part was the damsel in distress kind of bit of she was fine, just fine. But my favorite part from the reveal and all of this was she tells David, she's grab that stanchion and break it open, and Sean's just like, did you know that thing is called a stanchion?
Yeah.
that was great.
Well, I also like when Gus was like, the money's not in there. How do you know the money's not in there? He's like, it's not in there. I'm just doing it to buy some time. And he's like, how long do you think it's going to take to crack open a crypt? And it immediately just cracks wide open. So then they find out there's no money in. She gets pissed. Like we said, the acting would have made it a little bit better if she was better at it. But once we get, Lassie and Jules in there, it's kind of a nice little ending. There's no real wrap up like there usually is. It kind of all played out in front of them. So
yeah. I think what would have made it a little bit better is that she's there and she's in sort of that dress and the little sweater, and she's holding the gun. It's just not believable. It would have made a little bit more sense if she had been wearing
switched into a Catwoman suit.
Yeah, something a little more menacing, because I'm just not buying it. I was buying it up until when they give the reveal. Okay, I'm in. I bought it, and then we get that vision. I don't know. I'm not trying to, but you know what I mean. It just a
little bit of the Bondage Boys.
Yeah, exactly.
Get a little tougher outfit. I can see it there. Yeah, it's just. I when casting that role, they probably should have picked somebody better. But again, it's early on, and then the next episode that we do, the casting in it, top to bottom, T to B, home run. So I think this was just a curveball for the casting director. Obviously, it's early, so probably a lot of people didn't want to sign on to be on Psych. What is Psych? So that, I think, what hurt this episode was basically the acting of it, from the other players in it. But a pretty good plot for episode 4 here.
Yeah. It was a great story. I loved it, and that's again. Half of what makes the show great is the story, and the other half are the characters. And they generally the crimes are really good, and the way they go about solving it are great. And this sort of gets them back there. So we get the reveal. Lassie and Jules show up. To sort of save the day because Sean and Gus they're just about cooked at this point. And then for whatever reason, they're giving Lassie all the credit. This is, we get a little bit of that bumbling Lassie in this episode that we got in the last one as well, but not to that degree. And there's some great little things at the end where you see Sean and Lassie, Lassie's like, I will never admit, that you're and he won't say the word. So Sean's trying to get him to say it. Then he kind of goes,
Yeah.
"What, you think I'm psychic?" kind of thing. So we get that little fun back and forth there at the end. But top to bottom, I thought this was a much better episode of season 1.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed it. So next week, I keep saying it, and I don't want to downplay the stuff that we're currently doing,
Right.
but it really kicks into high gear. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But if we want to get to the stuff that we didn't hit while going through the holler there, we can head to the Thundercats Ho. And I am 100% with you with the my birthing canal has never felt so aligned.
I love that scene at the beginning. Just I love these. They'll do this from time to time, right? Where they'll have Sean and Gus in the police station doing some hijinks, and this one they're in Chief Vick's office there, and she's very much pregnant in season 1, and so she's got one of those big chairs, and it's all padded up, and Sean's sitting in, and this is again where we get nervous Gus. He's like, Sean, what are you doing? You gotta get out there, and McNabb brings him in. We get our pineapple reference here, right?
Pineapple smoothies.
Smoothie. And Sean, he bounces up and down and goes, "Oh, my birthing canal has never felt so aligned. Come sit in the magic springy bounce up chair." And
which I'm now calling the magic springy bounce up chair.
And he kind of sells Gus down because he gets Gus to sit in the chair.
Well, yeah, because he's taking new medication for his lactose intolerance.
Yeah, I could tell Gus, and he gives Gus the smoothie and he's sipping it, and then all of a sudden Chief Vick walks in and she gets pissed at Gus, and Gus is like, it's not my smoothie, Sean,
It's great. It's great, Sean and Gus stuff, and I think that's what you see really right from the rip in this, and it continues and only builds on it, is their acting and their back and forth. It's always been a 10. Like it's always been a 10. Even from the first episode, they just have this unbelievable connection as actors and just a chemistry that, I really do think is the best television friendship ever.
Yeah, I can't think of a better one, at least not off the top of my head. And they've had it. They've had it from season 1. It only gets stronger and stronger and better, and especially in the later seasons where they become producers. Sean starts actually directing. Whatever his freaking name is, when he actually starts directing
James Roday.
Yeah, thank you, James Roday. He starts directing some of the episodes, and they really start getting more and more hands-on, as the show goes, and that's just where it really picks up steam. And I just love those two guys together. It's like when the show ended, it was sad. Like when all good shows that you like end, you get sad, but especially this one. But yeah, I love Smooth Gus. I love some of those quotes. Stacy's mom. What was the one? There was a great chance in this episode for Gus. I've heard it both ways. Yeah, where they're in the blueberry, and it was the Florence Nightingale syndrome.
Yeah. Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah. It's and there was a perfect chance, and I think later on
they're building to it. They're building to it because that Sean getting the wrong name for things every time. It's pretty much in every episode. So they developed the I've heard it both ways, which is one of the many calling cards of this show. And again, that's why we love this show. There's so many repetitive jokes that don't really feel forced. That they kind of work them in naturally, and I think that's a credit to the writing of this show.
Yeah. And so there was a great moment there, and then what was the Jane Austen quote? It goes, "A charming woman. Who are you?
Charming woman. What are you, Jane Austen?" See, that was throwing me off every time I looked for the "a man with many hats doesn't like his haircut." I really we need to have Steve Franks on, and I need to ask him if that's like a book he read that's never been logged online, because I looked forever for that and I couldn't find it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's another guy that I think would be great, and probably someone who would, because there's a lot of people that love this show. It's got a huge fan base, and I'm sure these guys get asked, to do interviews and stuff like that. So he would would be great. Dule Hill would be great. I mean, obviously James or Dave, any of them would be fantastic. But Steve Franks would be good because the show. I mean, I think he wrote and sings the theme song.
Oh yeah. The Friendly Indians, I believe, is his band.
Yeah. And what I love too is that when they start to do some of the themed episodes, like the spoof episodes.
Oh, the Spanish version is unreal.
But its Spanish one is great. But the other great one is the Spanish one for Lights, Camera, Homicidio.
Yeah, that's what I just said. The Spanish one.
Oh yeah, sorry. What the hell was it? Sorry, not that one. Sorry, the Boys.
The Boys to Men one. Yeah, that's a good one.
The Boys to Men one's great. The Dual Skies one's great.
By the way, I just noticed this in the Google Docs. Does your Gus correct to Goose?
Oh yeah.
That's hysterical.
Yeah, it sure does, because I write it so goddamn much for the for all the other stuff that we're doing. So yeah.
Well, inside the DSG, which we are a part of, we got Goo from the Mac and Goo program. So when I check out the Google Doc and I see a bunch of stuff that's supposed to say Gus, it says Goose.
Goose, yeah. And there was one other thing that line in this that I love. Maybe you can help me out. Is Sean says something, and I think Gus says, "Stop saying that, Sean. You know I hate it." Oh, I thought I wrote it down. I must not have. Sean says something, and it was something silly, and Gus goes, "Stop saying that, Sean. You know I hate it." It was in the scene, I think, with the dryer sheets when they find David Wilcroft. But there's a lot of great good quips in this episode. A lot of great.
That's my first stump the Schwab moment here. I wasn't able to recall a line.
Yeah, cheapers. And then there was a couple of things you were telling me before we went on this. There's a couple little fun facts about this episode that you
not really even about this episode, just in general. I thought this might be a little bit of a lighter episode for content wise, so I was doing just some reading on the show, because usually I'll check out the Wikipedia for each episode, and this one didn't have anything for trivia or fun facts about this particular episode. But the show Psych itself was created by C. Franks, obviously, and he was asked to think of 5 TV show ideas after he produced and wrote Big Daddy in 1999. And he pitched all 5. Psych was one of them, and nobody picked it up. And then he brought it to all 5 major networks. Nobody still picked it up. He sat on it until about 2005, and then he pitched it to all of the other, cable networks. And the last one he went to was USA, and they finally were smart enough to hop on board. And I'm sure CBS was kicking themselves because they eventually ripped it off with The Mentalist several years later.
Thank God, because I don't think this show would have survived on CBS.
No, it wouldn't have.
USA was the absolute perfect.
I don't think they would have been able to be as goofy either.
Oh, no, God, no. It would have, yeah. The Mentalist was great because, The Mentalist was not great, but The Mentalist worked for CBS because you had a little bit of humor there, but it was more, definitely heavier on the procedural stuff there. And with shows like this and Monk being back to back, I think was just an absolute home run for them. So, but yeah, I can't say that this was a much funnier episode than I remember it being, and I enjoyed it a lot.
Indeed. Are we into the creamsicle now? I think that just was the creamsicle. Yeah, I had to keep up with this doc, so I think we are. The doc makes the doc, and I do a terrible job of keeping up with it. So,
hey, you know what? We're getting there. We're getting our flow. We're getting our sea legs, under us. But, what we're gonna do is a little. Come on, son. So next week, 9 Lives, which if you haven't seen it yet, obviously go see it if you're watching along with us, episode by episode. If you've already seen it, I would encourage you to go back and watch it, because this one is where we get a ton of Psych classicness, a lot of nicknames, one of my favorite things ever, and I'll see if I can dig it up, because I bought it to put in my office at work, because I had it in my old office, and JC, one of our buddies from the Jobber Knocker, knows it was hanging up for years in my old office. It's a poster from this episode, which I just think is hilarious. The first time I saw it, I was like, that's going in my office as well. So that's a little bit of tease ahead for next week, and it has to do with 9 Lives. So it's an episode I'm very much looking forward to watching, and it's up there in the all-time vault for times I've watched, probably in the mid-20s. Your witness is peeing on the evidence.
I think it's really where they find their stride in season 1, and then from there on out, it's kind of home runs.
Yeah, I love this episode coming up next week, 9 Lives. It's a great one. It's a fun one. We get our really what I believe to be the first real Gus nickname, because it's the first time we said, and this is so and we'll get into that, and we get a good physical pineapple reference in this next episode as well. So tune in for that. That one's gonna be a great one. Billy, where can the people find us?
They can find us all over, Joe. They can find us here on the YouTube, on PCP. I think we'll be starting to create some of our own channels, but be sure to check out the TLDR Instagram. I believe that was just created within the last week.
Yep. We created that. Nick and I started that about several days ago. So that's TLDR _pod, I believe, is the handle for that. So we've been putting a lot of obviously TLDR stuff, but we want to also use it to continue to pump the tires for the DSG. I put some stuff for I've Heard It Both Ways on there. So you can find, obviously if you're watching us on Twitch, on my Twitch channel at backcracker _Dr. Joe, you can find Billy on Twitter at BillyD2411. You can find me on Twitter at backcracker Dr. Joe.
And speaking of the DSG, you can check all of us out over there on Facebook as well. And then everybody, all the other podcasts we've got. Let's see. Furloughed Friends is no longer a thing, but PCP, which I am a part of, TLDR, which you are a part of, the Mac and Goop program, Dork, and Change My Mind, plus our streamers. One of them is you, Shime, and Davey.
And real quick before we sign off, I just want to tell people, go over to the Dork Facebook page and check out the superhero draft that we did on Tuesday. That was a lot of fun. World of fun. And that little intro you made, Billy, was fantastic.
Wait till you see what I got up the sleeve for Christmas.
Oh, I can't wait. I was like, you're telling me don't move your head, and I'm doing it, and I feel like
not even that, because I don't think enough people have sung the song. I'm gonna make a Christmas top 25, but I'll see if I can get the Christmas song together. Hopefully that comes out well. But people were not as enthused for that one, so we don't have enough parts of the choir just yet. But hopefully
I'll go high if you need me. I'll go high. I'll hit all those high G's for you, baby.
It's like when Gus and Sean go high-low. Classic high-low.
That's right.
You went high.
Oh, good shit, my friend. Good shit. Well, until next week, wait for it.
Frank says hi.